English major and a computer science major at UK. So she accomplished a lot in 2 different fields while she was here. And I want to congratulate you, Yvonne, because I saw that you are recently or are soon to be a published author with a book of your poetry. And so
Thank you.
congratulations to you. And we're very, very delighted to have you here today. We're doing this over the lunch hour because we know some of you participating were on internships and this was a convenient time for you. And also we didn't want to go too late in the day because that's really hard on Yvonne because you're what, 6 hours ahead of us?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. So I'll just talk briefly about the program. And Emily, are you controlling the
Yes,
PowerPoint?
yes, I am.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, so I'll just talk briefly about that. I'm going to go through quickly through some basic information, and then we're going to let Yvonne talk about what you really came to hear is what her actual experience was like. But then after that, we will go over the pieces of the application. But I just wanted to have this available. We are recording this session and we will have it online for students to be able to access later if you want to refresh something in your memory, or for students who weren't able to join us today, so that we'll have this information available. I just want to make you aware, because sometimes this does cause confusion for students. When you're applying through the UK cohort, as I hope you all will be, you have a campus deadline before the national deadline. And so you want to keep Thursday, September 10th on your calendar as the deadline that you're working toward. And then the way the campus process works, you will turn your materials into me. There are several campus review teams made up of faculty and staff who will interview you. And those interviews are very friendly. It's nothing to be alarmed about. And they really try to help you have an even stronger application by giving you some feedback. And then you have a couple of weeks to revise and resubmit all your documents to me. And then I attach a letter on behalf of the university and make sure that everything has come together and help you do any last typo checks. And then we go forward for the national deadline in October. So, but there are definitely 2 deadlines you want to think about. And one is that campus deadline is the one you want to meet first. And so I will strongly encourage all of you who are considering a Fulbright to really make sure that you're picking your country now and your program. You can only choose one type of grant, which could be study, research, or English teaching assistant, and you can only pick one country. So it's not an opportunity to have multiple applications. And you want to give yourself plenty of time to do some research on your program and to have plenty of time to write and revise. So I would encourage you to really start soon if you haven't taken a look at the online website. And if you'll go ahead and move it to the next screen. This is just a little history about the program. I will let you sort of read by yourself, but you can see it's not, you know, not yet 100 years old, but they have been doing this a while, and they send students all over the world. And the other thing to be careful about is there are 2 Fulbright programs. There is one for students, and then there is one for faculty, and that's run by a different section of IIE. But you want to make sure up in the corner of that PowerPoint you see us.fulbrightonline.org. That's the website you want. Sometimes people will get on the faculty website, and the way I can always know students are doing that, they'll call me and say, oh, I want to apply for that 3-month program. And that's not an option for you. The student Fulbright is always going to be 9.5 to 10 months. We call it a Fulbright year, but it's usually about 10 months long. And so you want to make sure you're on the right website. And we'll move forward to the next slide. Fulbright is hugely diverse. Students from all kinds of degrees and every kind of background, and even GPA. Don't be concerned if your GPA you don't feel you know, would put you at the top of the class. Fulbright does not basically review based on GPA. So they're really interested in your experiences, how you will be a representative for the U.S. abroad, what you're proposing to do while you're there. So I want a very, very wide range of students at UK to consider the Fulbright because it would be open to you. this is the eligibility. So this is something you do want to take a look at. You must be a U.S. citizen by the application deadline. So, and that would be the October national deadline, not our campus deadline. You want to have your bachelor's degree or equivalent by the start of the grant. So what often happens is students are applying as seniors. So you're applying in the fall of the senior year, you would hear about it in the spring of the senior year, and then you would go the next fall or spring, depending on the program you chose. And that's typically, or a master's student may be applying, you know, or you can, as long as you haven't yet earned your PhD, you are eligible for this program. So we also have a lot of young alums. I don't know if we have any on the call, but it is not uncommon for us to have alums that are 2, 3, 4, 5 years out applying for programs through the UK cohort, and we welcome our alumni to do that. But you can't apply as a sophomore, for example, and go during your undergraduate career. It's not study abroad in that sense. And then each country, when you get on to read on the website, each country will have their own specific requirements, and you want to be aware of those. This just gives you some background on the number. Fulbright is a large program, and it's sending a lot of students all around the world. And now what I'll do, I know I've gone through that really fast, so we're going to have a time later on for questions, and you can put them in the chat box, and at some point, we usually are small enough that we can just have people unmute themselves and ask questions. But I want to let Yvonne talk about her specific experiences. And Yvonne, are you open to people asking you questions while you're talking, or would you rather they wait?
Well, they can ask questions while I'm talking. It's no problem.
Say it again, I'm sorry.
They can ask questions while I'm talking. That's no problem.
So everybody feel free then to ask your questions, or if you're a little shy, you can send them to us and we can ask either way. But I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Yvonne and let her talk about her year in Lancaster.
All right. So Dr. Whitlow already mentioned that there are 2 types of Fulbright programs: is the English teaching assistant and the study research. I did the study research, so I won't be able to really talk about the English teaching assistant experience because I'm not sure what that entails. But I ended up doing a 1-year master program at Lancaster University in England. The UK mainly has 1-year master programs, so if you're looking to get a master, it works really well with the Fulbright program. Unless you're doing something that is creative or in the art side, then it's usually a 2-year master program. The way that the UK Fulbright works is that everyone goes over to London around September of the Fulbright year, and we all meet in London, and we get to meet all the other Fulbrighters from the US who will be also doing masters in research in the UK. We stayed there for like a few days. We got to know each other, did a few activities around London, and then we all went our separate ways to our own universities. My program didn't actually start until October, so at the beginning of September I was in London, so then I actually got about 2 to 3 weeks to just travel around the UK, which was really nice. You are allowed to leave the UK from the UK Fulbright program, but they want you to spend as much time as possible in the host country because it is a cultural and academic program where they're wanting you to strengthen relationships between the US and the country that you're going to. So that's something that they stress, that you're open to other countries, and that you're open to really engaging with your host community, doing extracurricular activities. For example, I did poetry readings a lot with in the city of Lancaster that I was in, which was people outside of the university as well, which was really nice to get to know people that were just living in Lancaster and weren't university students as well. But in general, it was just a normal master's program as an international student, which was really nice. And most of my colleagues, my cohort in my master's program were all British. Some people had a lot of international students in their master's programs, and they were hoping to get to know more British people. So I got lucky in that respect, that most of my co-students were also British. And yeah, I guess if there's any specific questions you all have, I can answer that. But yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit, Yvonne, about how the graduate program, how the education might differ a little bit in a British university than what you experienced in the US?
I guess for in general in Europe, for anyone who's like looking at Europe and specifically, it's a little more hands-off than the US, where you're mainly expected, like you have lecture time with the professor, but you're largely expected to learn on your own, go to the library, read textbooks. So there's a lot more responsibility, I feel like, in that respect, and there's a lot more is expected of you, where it's, I mean, I don't want to say that you're not expected to learn on your own at the U.S. universities, but there's just a lot less that the professor is expected to teach you versus you're supposed to go on your own and figure things out before you go to the professor and ask, oh, I tried this and this, now can you help me, sort of experience, if that makes sense.
And were you considered to be in a taught master's or a research master's degree?
Yeah.
I know there's a difference.
Yeah, so mine was a taught master's, so you actually had like taught lectures. There are also research masters where it's largely you're doing a research project with the professor, but mine was taught, yeah.
Do we have anybody that has any questions? Does the year run differently, Yvonne? I know there's something like Trinity term and there are these different names of the terms. Is that the way it worked at your university? Or
yeah, we had trimesters, so you had different breaks in between the trimester, but in general, it didn't have a huge impact on the school year, like versus like how it would be at a U.S. institution. It was just where the breaks happened was different.
And talk about just a little bit more about your experience living in the UK for a year. Did you live on campus? Did you have to find your own housing?
Yeah, I did live on campus. So the Fulbright program doesn't help you find housing. That is something that you're expected to do on your own, but oftentimes the university will have on-campus housing for you and will have resources for you. So I did live on campus, and so I used the housing portal through my university to do that.
And did you find that your Fulbright award met your needs well in terms of the financial costs?
Yeah, it was definitely enough financially. It is like if you're going to the UK and London, you do get a little more money because London's more expensive, but your money also doesn't go as far because London is just a lot more expensive than the rest of the UK. So yeah, if you're looking at London, just be aware that you might have to be a little bit more frugal than usual, but yeah, it was enough.
We probably should have put a map on here, but where is Lancaster in relation to London?
It is northwest England.
Okay.
So closer to Scotland than London.
Okay. All right.
Dr. Whitlow, I have a question.
Oh, go ahead. Yes. Hi, Kira.
Hi, how you doing? Hi, Yvonne.
Hi.
I am also in computer science and looking at doing a Fulbright program in England. So really interesting connection there. But what I was wondering was, since you're applying to a taught degree, in your application, what did you kind of focus on when you talked about like your plan for your time that you're going to spend there?
Or you mean like how you were going to engage like an extracurricular or?
Well, yeah, because it's like the research and study award, right? And it kind of talks about like, what is your plan for like making the most of your time, both in your degree and like outside of that. And so I just kind of wondered, what was your perspective, it being a taught degree and most of the degree being kind of planned out for you already?
Yeah. Well, in that respect, in my application, I touched on what I would want to do with my degree. I touched on why I wanted to do my degree in the country that I wanted to do it in and the program. That's something that Fulbright will be really looking forward to, is that you have a very specific reason of why you want to do that program in that country and why would it help you to go there versus doing a master's, for example, in the US. Like, how does this experience help you specifically? So that was one of the things I focused on, was how the degree would benefit me. But as far as like extracurricular activities, but since the creative writing side of me is a big part of me, I talked about how I was going to engage with the whole community in that way by doing poetry readings, which I ended up doing, and doing literary events, which I also participated in. So I did some research about Lancaster, what kind of available opportunities that they had on the creative writing side, and then I was able to use that in my application. Did that answer your question?
One thing I'll interject here for those of you who may have already started an application. The application has changed since Yvonne applied, and she had to put in her statement of grant purpose how she would engage with the host country. And now they have a separate question on the online Fulbright application where they allow you to have a paragraph talking about that. So you would spend your whole 2 pages of your grant proposal talking about the program and what you're going to do in that. You wouldn't spend as much time. You might talk about how you're engaged with the university a little bit, but in general, you're going to be very focused on the academics. And so Yvonne had kind of 2 things she was trying to do. Yours is going to be really making that connection between that program, why it's the right fit for you, what you know about it. Yvonne, how deep a dive did you do in the program for you went? Had you communicated with some faculty there? Did you talk about specific courses you wanted to take, or faculty who had particular research interests that were interesting to you?
So I did a lot of research online. I researched what courses they had and what professors they had. I looked at the research the professors were involved in to see if it aligned with my interests as well. However, I didn't actually reach out to anyone. For a study, for a top program, it's less important. If you're doing something with research, you will need to get a letter of affiliation. You will need to want to communicate with a specific professor or a specific person to make sure that they can actually support your research goals. But for a top program, it's a little more structured. And it was not even required for me to have the letter of affiliation for the UK for the top program. But for the research, if you're doing like a research based program, then the letter of affiliation is required. Yeah, so I just did research, and I found specific professors that had also background in the humanities and how that related to cybersecurity and how that would benefit me, things like that.
And I noticed we've moved to a different slide where it talks about the award benefits. So I want people to be able to look at that and see what Fulbright covers compared to some of the opportunities to go and teach English abroad, or Princeton in Asia, some of the other awards that will take you abroad for a year. Fulbright covers more of your costs because they actually cover your travel there and back, and some programs won't do that. But do you want to talk about any of these in specific, Yvonne, like how the monthly stipend works? I always encourage students to actually have some money that they're taking with them, because sometimes it takes a while for that first stipend check to kick in.
Yeah, it can take a month or 2 before the first stipend check. And I think it was pretty much every 3 to 4 months you got the next installment. And it is just in general to have good, or have some savings just in case it gets tight at any point. But yeah, the first stipend check, it could take a while, so you will want to have some backup funds and then reimburse yourself once you get the stipend check.
So they did it in several lump sums. Yeah. They didn't do it in a monthly. Okay, so that's something that would vary between countries for people to be aware of. Some countries, they do pay it on a monthly basis, and some and sometimes that first monthly stipend or several months is a larger amount, right? Because it helps pay you back for your flight and stuff. Exactly. So you usually get a larger sum in the beginning, and you definitely have to budget. So my understanding is your costs are covered very well, but you don't want to go over without any access to your funds.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Did you have to use the health system in the country at all?
I did not know.
Okay.
But in general, like for the UK, you are covered as an international student. You have to think it was like a 200 or 200 pounds that you had to pay, and then you were covered for everything.
And I don't know if you did this, Yvonne, but I understood that people have been covered very well, but I have also encouraged students to maintain their UK student insurance if they can, or graduate students particularly to maintain the graduate student. There's some health insurance you can buy from UK just as a backup. We hope that nothing will happen like this year, but for those of you who are not aware, many of the Fulbrighters had to come home in March. So they were called back from their grants, even if they just started in January. So I had students who were almost at the end of their Fulbright year, and I had students who were just beginning. And even though Fulbright continued with some funding after they came back, there was some gap about insurance, because that's international insurance. And so we don't expect that to happen again. But you might consider if it's possible for you to stay on your parents' insurance that year, or have some backup in the event that COVID would would become an issue again, we've learned that's a good way to keep, to have a backup plan. That didn't happen for Yvonne, obviously. It was a different world then.
Yeah, and it's definitely not a bad idea to always have a backup, yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about earning your degree and then being able to stay and work internationally and how that came about?
So I got my degree in October, so I was actually in the UK for an entire year. I considered staying in England, but then Brexit happened, and I decided to look at what other opportunities there were. And since I can speak German, I decided to look in Germany. And having that international experience already and already being in Europe really helped me to just go over to Germany. So yeah, I don't know if there's anything particular you wanted me to mention.
And so you're still a US citizen, but you have to have a special work visa to be in Germany?
Yeah, Germany makes it really easy because they actually need skilled workers. They have a skilled worker shortage, and for Americans, you can just go over there and with a job, and then it's really easy to get a visa to stay. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward process as well.
To know.
Yeah.
And that I'm sure can vary with countries, right? So,
yeah.
But that's the experience with Germany. So many Fulbrighters do come back from their study year because then they're going to go into a PhD in the US or medical school or other things that they're doing. But we have had several of our Fulbrighters who've been able to stay internationally and work if they've chosen to do that. So why don't we move on to the next slide, and these are the application components. And I just want to, actually I should have changed. There is no letter of affiliation, so you can mark that out. That's actually for the research part, not the study proposal. But one of the things I just want, I can't see most of you because you're on hidden video, but maybe you have opened up your application already for the Fulbright. You can actually go online from the website, and if you go under the applicants tab and all the way to the bottom, that is where the online application is, and you can open up your application there. It's like many online things that you use. You'll set up your name and password, and then you can go back and forth until you turn it in to me in September. And there will be some online information that you'll give about demographics. This is where you'll talk about host country engagement and future plans. You'll put your passport number in there, your emergency contact, those kinds of things. Then there are 2 essays, and one is the statement of grant purpose. And this really, we have research proposal, but it's really a study proposal. So this is where you talk about that specific program of study. That's where Yvonne talked specifically about this cybersecurity master's at Lancaster University. And you want to you want to do a very deep dive into that program. And you may not be looking at the UK. You may be looking at Spain or Germany or Poland. And one of the things you want to do is look very carefully at the country, because some countries will allow you to come do a research year, but not a study year. Some will allow a study year, but not a research year. Some will allow both. So because the research and study are put together as a category on Fulbright, you want to be very careful that you're distinguishing between the two. And then the personal statement is 1 page, and that is the same for everyone, no matter what type of grant you're applying for. And do you want to talk a little bit, Yvonne, about how you approached your personal statement?
Yeah, sure. So for my personal statement, I guess I'll just sort of explain how I approached it. So for my personal statement, I really focused on the cultural aspect of the program and this international relationship. Trying to think of the word. I've been speaking German for like the past few months, so strictly. The relationship that, what's the word? Okay, I'll try to phrase it a different way. I guess the collaboration that they want to, wow, I'm really English right now. Okay, so basically what I wrote in my personal statement was I've talked about like my relationship with experiencing racism while growing up, and how being discriminated against has made me sure that I don't want to discriminate against other people, and how has that made me open to other cultures and open to other people. And so then I was focusing on the engagement with like the host community, and like how I'm open to that, and like how that relates to the internet and the community aspect of the internet. So basically, yeah, for my official statement, I was focusing on the exchange. That's the word I was looking for, the cultural exchange part of it.
Right, exactly. You're focusing more on the cultural exchange. This is where you sort of introduce yourself as an individual, not in the sense of, it's not a rehash of your resume or anything, but this is where the review committee would get some opportunity to understand who you are and what your values are and what you want to do long term. The National Screening Committee, which is made up of faculty from around the country, that's what happens in the late fall. They don't interview you, right? So they're just looking at your written work. On campus, we interview you, and so we have an opportunity for you to explain. But when we send it forward to the national review, they're only going to look at your written work. And so we want to make sure that you've answered all the questions and that you come across as a person who we would love to see go abroad as a representative of the US. And so that's the tone that you want to take in terms of helping them understand who you are and how excited you'd be about the opportunity to study abroad. There is a question here in the chat box I saw. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, I saw that. So yeah, I can answer that now.
Okay.
I guess in general, there is a difference between working in Germany with just like work culture is one big thing. In the US, we tend to have the idea that we need to work more and vacation less, and if you take vacation, it makes you lazy. Germany is completely opposite, where they encourage you to take vacation. You're like actually required to take 20 days of vacation a year. Oftentimes you'll have 30 days of vacation to use. And it's basically, you're not expected to take work home. When the work day is over, you can relax and hang out with friends and family. So it's very relaxed, but you're also like, while you're working, you're getting work done, and you're working hard, but you also get resting time, which is really nice. It's just really a different pace, a working pace. But as far as that, whether or not you'll need to know German depends on what company you're at. For my work, I do have to speak German 24/7 for the most part, but there are opportunities where there are English speaking roles, so it's not a must to know German, but it definitely helps.
And I don't know if you know anything about the particular market for computational linguistics, but I would say to the student who posted that question, there are a couple of ways that you might could find that out. One would be talking to faculty in your department that are doing that. You know what I mean? They might have some idea what the market for that is. And also the Career Center may have some idea what the market for that is, but you may also have to go in and look at the country you might be interested in and look at maybe some job postings, or so that you would have to really do your research, I think, to find out what the market for that is. And that's probably a field that actually applies to lots of different jobs, I would imagine. So that might be something to do your research while you're preparing for your Fulbright. The other thing I will mention, I don't think we've talked about languages on the Fulbright, and obviously Yvonne didn't have to do a language evaluation for the United Kingdom. But let's say you were going to Brazil, where they want you to have a certain level of Spanish or Portuguese, and so you have to have a language evaluation as part of your Fulbright application. So I will let everyone on the call know that, for example, most of the Spanish-speaking countries, you have to have at least intermediate Spanish. And it might be, if you're going to do a research or a study year, you'd need to be advanced in order to be able to manage. So you want to take a close look at that also as you're looking at the various programs that you're interested in. And I don't know, Yvonne, in terms of, you knew some German before you went? You studied German?
Yeah, I learned German first in high school, and I just practiced it a lot, and basically became conversationally fluent by practicing with language partners and pen pals. And then, so by the time I ended up with my master's in England, I was able to go over to Germany and basically be able to survive.
So that would have been very helpful as well. And so for people to think about that in terms of their particular language interests. Now, there are also countries where they don't necessarily, English is not their national language, but they don't require you to have their national language. So the Czech Republic, for example, we had a student who received an English teaching award there, and they don't require you to speak Czech. Malaysia, we've had 3 students go there, they don't require. So this, it varies tremendously, you know, by country, so you just really have to read their grant. And as you look at these particular requirements, you have to have 3 references, and it says an online form. That's actually for the ETA, the English Teaching Award. For the research or study, you'd be looking at 3 letters. And probably faculty, because if you're applying for a study award, remember that the recommenders are going to be speaking to your ability to do graduate work and to adapt to a graduate program in another country and how strong you are. So you're probably not going to want maybe your work supervisor, or, you know, you're probably going to want faculty who can speak to that pretty specifically. Did you have 3 faculty, Yvonne, when you applied?
I did, yeah. I think Dr. Robchuk's in the call. He wrote one of my letters. He was earlier.
I think he did.
Yeah. But yeah, speaking on to that, I would choose faculty that know you well. Hopefully you've been visiting faculty in office hours and you've built a sort of relationship, a working relationship with your faculty members or with your professors. Because you really want people who know you and can write more than, oh, this student got an A in my class, that's all I can say about them, I know nothing else. You want
Precisely.
You want people who know you and know your goals and can really speak more than just beyond just academia.
And can perhaps even talk about you as a cultural exchange and the way that you would engage with people abroad, as well as the fact that you're very competent at your academic discipline. So yes, it is helpful if you have faculty and if they know you a little better. And then you don't need a letter of affiliation for most times when you're applying for a study grant. You do for a research grant, but most of the times for study you don't. And the campus committee evaluation is why you go through the campus process, and then we will take unofficial transcripts. Yvonne, talk about applying for the program, because you do have to, if you're applying for a Fulbright study program, you have to actually go ahead and apply for that academic program as well, correct?
Yeah. So if you get the Fulbright program, it is it's not automatic acceptance into the graduate program that you're applying for. So you have to apply for the Fulbright program and the graduate program. You need to get accepted to both. So and they're separate. So yeah. Is there any?
Do you remember about the timing of when you applied?
That exactly I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure I probably applied close to when I was doing about to submit my Fulbright.
Okay.
Fulbright
So
application.
sometimes I will say to students, because you're applying in the early fall, a lot of times students will wait until January to apply for their graduate program. And the reason being, I have had students who've said to me, if I don't get the Fulbright, I'm not going. And I have other students who are like, I'm going no matter what. You know, I'm going to figure out a way. Fulbright is just one of my options. So the way the Fulbright works is because you apply through your campus and then you have a national review, and then you will hear in December or January whether you're a semi-finalist. When Yvonne applied, it was all in January, but now some countries report in December. You will hear whether or not you're a semi-finalist. If you're not, then that means you're not going any farther in the Fulbright process. And so if you were going to go to that graduate program, you know you have to self-fund or get other scholarships. If you are a semi-finalist, what that means is you've been referred to the host country for the final choice. And it's great news because it means obviously that your odds just went way up, but you're referred to the host country and then they make the final decision about the award. At that point, I say to students, as soon as you hear about that semi-finalist, you need to have your application ready to go and you need to press submit, right? Because one of the things you don't want to do is wait too late in the spring and then you can't get your acceptance in time, because you can get a Fulbright and then not be accepted to the graduate program and you lose the Fulbright. They are tied together, right? So that's another thing too. In looking at the programs, you want to make sure that it's a program for which you're a good fit, and that they don't have something in there that would make you not a good fit. So I had a student one time that wanted to apply for a program, but the program very specifically said that they had this really strong preference for people who had been out and had worked for several years for their master's program. They didn't want people straight from undergraduate. So that's not a good program to apply for then, because you're putting yourself at a deficit. So you definitely want to read all the fine print around the graduate program and make sure that you're eligible and a good fit before you submit your Fulbright and then before you apply for that program. And then probably each graduate program has different requirements, but do you remember, Yvonne, what you had to do for your application for Lancaster?
I mean, it wasn't extremely different from the Fulbright program, actually, where they were looking at what extracurricular activities you have. They were looking for your transcripts. They also had an essay that wanted you to write, and a lot of it was similar to the Fulbright application itself. So it wasn't that much more work to apply to.
And you can probably use the same recommenders.
Yeah, exactly.
They might not want to do exactly the same letter, because one of them is addressing some of Fulbright's goals, which wouldn't necessarily be the goals of the graduate program. But it would be substantially the same, but perhaps not exactly the same.
Yeah.
Let me open it up to our students on the call. Are there other questions that you have? Or Jersey, feel free to weigh in, you too.
I do have one question. So I'm currently a grad student at UK. I'm in the law program and also Patterson. And I have about a year and a half left before I finish both programs. Should I just wait until and apply pretty much in 2021 before I try and apply for Fulbright in my last semester in those
Do you want to go and do a research year?
Research year sounds preferable. Just because of what my interests related to international relations and law. So
it depends. I have had people from Patterson School do it both ways. I mean, you could apply for this fall, and then if you get it, you could go do your research year and then come back and do a final semester, right? If that's what you would have, say you have 3 semesters. Or you could pick one of the programs that is off cycle from us. So you could pick, let's say, Australia, where you actually apply in the fall and you hear in the spring, but you don't go till the following spring because their academic year is opposite from ours. So Australia is like that, Brazil is like that, maybe Argentina. There are a handful of countries where you actually don't go until the spring. South Africa is like that. So that would be an option. Or you could wait and apply that very final semester that fall, and knowing that you would go the next fall or spring, and then you would have to do something to fill in the gap, right? If you graduate in December and you weren't going till the following August or September, then what would you do in between? So either option would be fine, and in fact, you could apply both times. I often say to students, we have had a number of students who didn't get it the first time, but it was great experience for them, and then they learned and they got it on their second go round. There's no guarantee of that, but we've had a good success rate with that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions?
Yvonne, what would you say was the most difficult part of the application itself for you?
I guess the most difficult part for me was my personal statement. I guess to just make sure that I was conveying what I wanted to convey. I don't know if Dr. Whitlow remembers, my first personal statement was kind of like everywhere before the meeting with you all, and then it got all
I think most people's are, right?
Yeah.
Don't feel bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very common. A personal statement is very hard to write, as Yvonne learned. And partly because we all start out maybe wanting to talk about what we're doing now or tell the history of our college studies, and what Fulbright wants is a larger sense, right? They want a sense of who you are as an entire person, as a fuller person, not just as a college student. But right now you think of yourself primarily as a student, right? And you may not be thinking about how do I tell about myself as a larger person. Other questions from students? We do have some factors in selection on there, so I just want to let you know. The writing of the application is very, very important. So that's why I strongly encourage you to start your application now. Think about your essays before you actually start writing. please use the resources of my office. I spend my summer reading Fulbright applications and other major award applications, and Emily, my colleague, as well. So we will be happy to read it many times and give you feedback and help you think about the approach you want to take in your essays. So I strongly encourage you, start early, please. That will help you a lot. And if we move to the next slide, there are a lot of resources that Fulbright has available to you too. Oh, I'm sorry, this is the deadline slide. So just to give you an idea, you're in this designing your project and preparing your application phase. Then there are the various deadlines we've discussed. And then you would not find out until the spring, early summer. So Fulbright is a very long process. You have to be thinking well ahead of your graduation. So then I think it's the next, yeah. So Fulbright has a lot of information that they will share with you about what makes a good application or questions about a specific country. You can also come to me on that because sometimes I'll know because I'll have worked with a student for that country. Sometimes I don't, so we have to reach out to the Fulbright Commission for that country or the embassy. So we have all of their information, and then we have another slide that, you know, I encourage you to follow the UK's Office of Nationally Competitive Awards, because we will post things periodically and different award opportunities, and so that might be helpful for you, for those of you who are out there thinking about Fulbright and other opportunities that might be helpful for you for your particular you know, graduate work or research work. Are there other comments, Yvonne, that you would want to bring to people about either about Fulbright or living abroad or pursuing a graduate degree abroad?
Well, if you do get the chance to go abroad, I would definitely do it. It's one of the things. So if you're like on the fence of applying to Fulbright, I would definitely give it a try. It's definitely worth it to get international experience and just expose yourself to different cultures. But just in general, in regards to the application, I would just stress again that in your application, make sure that you are being specific of what program you want to go to and why you want to go to that country, because that's something that's very important to Fulbright. It's not just, oh, I want to go to England because they speak English there and I don't want to go to a country where they don't speak English, or I just want to go abroad to travel and have fun. They're looking for people who are serious for the program and for the country.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I want all of you to have the opportunity to travel, but this is not a travel award in that sense. It really is to go and do the specific degree or research or teaching English, and then also to experience that country and have cultural exchange as well. But it is not strictly a travel award as you might think of it.
I have a question.
Hi, Chelsea.
Hi, yes. So do you think that Fulbright considers if you have been able to study abroad in the past or not as a factor in deciding if you are eligible?
Not particularly. Oh, go ahead, Yvonne.
Yeah, I was going to say that they do consider that, but it's mainly if you've had extensive experience in the country that you're applying to. If you've gone to other countries that isn't the country you're applying to, that has less of an impact and doesn't impact that much at all. Because, for example, I had been to Germany a couple times beforehand. I also been to Scotland before, and I was still able to go to England on the Fulbright Award. It's more like, oh, I go to England every year and I'm applying to go to England on a Fulbright. That would weigh against it versus someone who's never been to England.
Precisely. It's the amount of it. So if you did a semester study abroad or something, that would not, I wouldn't worry about that.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments?
And maybe I will make a comment. Okay, I would like to thank the competitive scholarships program for organizing this meeting. It is also great to see Yvonne so successful. She is, as you remember, a 2017 computer science graduate. As you can hear from my accent, I am a person who traveled also. I will show you how I travel just on Zoom by showing now just a picture from my home town. Travel these days on Zoom is much easier than what Yvonne has done. But I encourage everyone, and I'm so happy to see so many students in particular also Kira from computer science participating in this session. When you go back to the first slide, okay, we don't need to do that, to look at the mission of Fulbright Award. It is a fantastic mission to connect people, and travel is one way to learn that we all are equal. And that's just really why I love my students from computer science in particular to take the opportunity of the travel, learning other cultures, okay, and really enriching own lives and other people's lives. So this is my comment. And Yvonne, once again, it's great to see you.
Yeah, it's nice to see you too.
Yeah.
It is, you know, it is one of those things that students will often say, and probably Yvonne, it is life-changing to do a Fulbright year, to spend a year abroad. It probably changed the path of Yvonne's career in terms of what you thought you might do when you started at UK and what you're actually doing, you know. And so I strongly encourage people to think about that as well. You know, it's a big opportunity, and so it can bring big things about for you. And so I would want all students to try. And please don't tell yourself, you know, I wouldn't be competitive for this reason or that reason. Fulbright is very, very diverse. And so I would really, it really is the work that you put in and the enthusiasm you show. And so I would really love to see everybody on the call applying for Fulbright at some point, maybe this year, or if another year is a better choice for you. But I hope you will really think about it. It is wonderful. And we have other online, we're going to be putting this online on the Nationally Competitive Awards website. And I will mention, we have had wonderful alumni like Yvonne who've done this with us, for someone who did a research year, a graduate student who talked about that, and we have that online. And one of our alumni who did an English teaching assistant award in, you know, I don't even remember where she was, Brazil maybe, but we did another one where we did an ETA. So you can look at those different videos as well to see what some of our alumni are doing, you know, on the Fulbright Awards. So it's a very multifaceted award. It's a terrific opportunity. But there are other things as well. So for those of you who are on the call and maybe I haven't met you yet or you haven't talked to me, if you had other questions, please reach out. And if Fulbright is not exactly what you were looking for, we can see if I can make you aware of some other opportunities that you might want to consider. Yvonne, thank you so very, very much. It's lovely to see you. Congratulations on both your employment and also your publication. We're really proud of you as a UK alum.
Thank you.
It's lovely to see you. Any last questions from anyone? Oh, did we have another one in the chat box that we missed? Oh, no, there's a comment. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, that might.
Oh, and Emily put a note about the other videos. I'm sorry, I didn't see that, Emily. So
well,
I repeated that.
I kind of did a roundabout way of describing it because I know links don't always work very well in the Zoom chat. So if you go to our main page, you can find all of those videos there. Or if you, for some reason, can't find them, feel free to reach out and I'm happy to send you the link.
Thank you all. We really appreciate your time. It's lovely to have so many people on this call. And thank you, Yvonne. It is just wonderful to see you and hear about all that you're doing. And thank you, Jersey, for helping us get this promoted. Really appreciate it. Goodbye, everyone. I hope to be seeing all of your applications in the online portal.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.